My about a year ago, I took up a post with the North Wessex Downs National Landscape, part-time post, as a project coordinator for what is called Partnerships for Nature, which is the North Wessex Downs National Landscapes portion of Species Survival Fund, which is funded by Defra and administered by the National Lottery. And there's lots and lots of agencies involved in all of this, as you can imagine. Anyway, so that's really a little bit of background. It was started up perhaps 2 years ago, the initial requests for bids, and the purpose of the program is to support projects that tackle habitat loss, safeguard fragile ecosystems, and restore wildlife-friendly habitats. Now, there are 20 projects across England and Wales, and most of them are things like the National Trust or various wildlife trusts. And I think we're unusual in that it was a national landscape that actually is the lead partner in this. So it's £25 million. The program is really very, very short. It effectively started, well, for us, May last year, and we have to complete everything and report really by end of February next year. So really, for practically speaking, for habitats, we're looking at really 2 seasons or 2 season opportunities to really undertake work, which I'll sort of elaborate in a minute. We've got 7 sites. Well, just to say, I think it's probably worth emphasizing, given this is WCA, the sole focus of this project was about habitat and nature recovery. There's nothing in there. It might be incidental, but there's nothing really about addressing climate change directly. There's a little bit about trying to engage with local people and encourage greater access. There's a little bit about sort of trying to inject spending into the local economy. But really, this is a very, very focused program around nature recovery. Although it ends in February 26, with the agreement with the partners, the landowners, is that there would be 5 years of monitoring of certain species that are agreed. So we can hopefully see within that period, after having undertaken baseline surveys, to see what improvements in wildlife and particularly threatened species has happened over that 5-year period. Because obviously 2 years is hardly, although certain things have come back, 2 years really is not, sort of long enough to really register any major change. There is a 10-year agreement with all the partners that they have to maintain that habitat as well. So they can't go and sort of trash it at the end of 5 years or whatever. So we have 7 sites, as I said, across the North Wessex Downs, which is this area up here. So we do take a chunk out of Wiltshire. Unfortunately for Wiltshire, there's only one project actually in Wiltshire in this particular programme. The rest are in, I think, Oxfordshire and West Berkshire. And that's really just a product of the way that the bid process went, because it was very quick and we needed to contact partners who were perhaps in a position to be able to undertake the work. So the funding covers, as well as capital works and revenue works, there's 2 part-time officers at the North Wessex Downs, one of which is me, and we have we're paying the salaries of 2 people, one at Bucklebury Common, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is a ranger doing some fantastic work there, and also a regenerative agriculture officer for Earth Trust. Okay, now, so onto the projects themselves. This is Benham Estates. You might not know this. This is on the River Kennet, just downstream of Hungerford, near Kentbury. And this was perhaps, we got 3 major projects and 4 smaller ones. This is one of the major ones, as you can probably see. So here, the whole aim of this project is to, if you like, realign, rewiggle is a term sometimes used for a stretch of the River Kennet. This area here is the sort of floodplain, and the thing is, the River Kennet is a kind of braided river in many ways. There's lots of channels have been formed over the centuries, but essentially a lot of them are really very not species rich, because they've effectively been dredged, they've been embanked, so they can't flood into the surrounding land, and they've been straightened. So you get a very consistent flow through them, which actually doesn't favour wildlife, particularly obviously fish and other river insects. So what's happened there is we've re-wiggled. The river originally went, excuse me. The river originally went around here. So this was a channel that was dug, and it's been lined with gravel. So the gravel, because it's a chalk stream, it needs to be very clean. And only, the salmonids and insects will spawn or whatever, lay their eggs in clean gravel bedded streams. So we excavated gravel from various points around the site to line that. And along the line there, we put in tree trunks, we put in all sorts of things that slow down and change the profile of the river itself, so that it favours different sort of microhabitats along its length. This is phase 1. We're going to be carrying on further works downstream this coming autumn and winter. An interesting thing, particularly for me, is that in digging this gravel pit here, we found a really very internationally significant archaeological site, because you can imagine on a chalk stream, they run all year round, unless it's very dry weather, obviously in summer, but certainly in winter it's a constant flow, constant temperature. Therefore you obviously get vegetation still growing and not frozen around that, and that attracts the wildlife down. So our prehistoric ancestors knew this and would come down probably seasonally to hunt. And so we had there a Mesolithic hunting camp and Bronze Age hunting camp, so which is very exciting. But it did rather have an impact upon the progress of the project, which unfortunately we managed to catch up, especially during the very, very heavy rain. As you can imagine, you can see the water table is very high. Anyway, we'll move on to Sulham Estate. Now, this is right up against the River Thames here. This is right on the edge of our national landscape. You've got the Chilterns on the other side. This project was co-funded with a thing called Mend the Gap, which is money the National Railways gave to this area for projects to ameliorate the impact of the gantries you can see on the railway line there. Because it's a national landscape, it's obviously sensitive. Anyway, here, this was a very large arable field, and we created a scrape here that is kind of seasonally flooded. We planted, as you can see up there, we planted various wetland grasses and shrubs and herbs, and as a consequence, we got another sort of more varied habitat. And I'm glad to say that we had some nesting lapwings came actually only just this summer. And this work was done last winter. Bucklebury Common, I mentioned earlier, is again one of our much biggest sites there. This is a kind of twofold piece of work. Bucklebury Common is up on the gravel hills above Thatcham and Newbury, and originally the common would have been completely open or substantially open with heathland. Now, in our national landscape, heathland is actually quite rare, so this is why this was prioritized. And what's going on here is kind of looks pretty devastating. and it's really quite large scale stuff. What we're doing here is removing, since the Second World War, the heathland became overgrown with sort of birch saplings and lots of holly, which are choking out the older trees that were part of the common land. And those habitats actually really very poor in terms of wildlife. So one of the things we're doing has been removing those trees. This will all go to biomass, by the way. All the timber there is going to a biomass boiler down near Heathrow. So we're clearing all of that. We're actually scraping off all of the organic matter that's accumulated over that time, so that we're getting back to gravel. And actually we are finding heather and stuff and gorse, which will thrive on this in these poor conditions, are actually evident there. They've survived quite a long time, and they'll be coming back. In other areas where we've got originally more established woodland, we are restoring it to the conditions it would have been way back when it was grazed, because the common land was grazed, and that's how they kept all the scrub and the sort of birch at bay by being grazed. Since it's not grazed, obviously that's why it's come back. So we're reintroducing these woodland pastures, which are very rich habitat for butterflies and things and such like. And once this work is kind of cleared, we're actually introducing some belted galloways to go and graze this, and they'll be there actually doing the management for us. Interesting project. Lots of, you imagine, there's concerns about the impact on the environment there with this clearance, but it's already beginning to show signs of sort of recovering. So it's a great reassurance. We're also creating hibernacular and some ponds, and so we again bringing a little bit more variety into the heathland and wood pasture. Sheep Drove Farm, you might know, some of you. This is up on the Berkshire Downs. A small scale project here, twofold. We're recreating one dew pond and creating a new one, which is this in the process here. They were traditionally part of the landscape, often because it was sheep grazing, extensive sheep grazing, but also it's great for wildlife in terms of it's a source of pretty much a source of water all year round in a very dry landscape otherwise. And the other component of this is introducing a different experimental regimes of arable planting in order to encourage the recovery of arable wildflowers, some of which are tiny little things which you would walk past and wouldn't even notice, but they're incredibly rare because of spraying and all those and obviously fertilizers. This is an organic farm, so it's already got that head start, and we're monitoring that through the years. This is a wonderful place to go. They have lots of walks available there, so I'd encourage anyone to go up. Earth Trust. So this will be familiar to at least one person in the audience. So this project here was really to demonstrate regenerative agriculture by actually instituting this in this 26-hectare field that the Earth Trust have just recently purchased, and also to actually do the work, but also to engage with local farmers and farm clusters to learn from what's going on here, and hopefully to encourage them to sort of make that change. Again, interestingly, one of the issues there, this is, you might be familiar with the Whitnam clumps, and this is an Iron Age hill fort. So the original project we were planning for this field here had to change over winter because there was very sensitive archaeology in the field, and the agroforestry element of the project couldn't go ahead because of the potential damage. So actually, beneficially, the that was relocated. Some of those elements were relocated to two other fields that belong to Earth Trust, actually closer to the centre itself. So that's good. So this one here is really, this is silver arable, which is basically combining rows of fruit and nut trees with arable planting in between. And then this one is a kind of example of silver pasture, which is standard trees set amongst grazed pasture land. The field we were originally going to work on is now going to be partly chalk grassland, which again is very rare or diminishingly rare habitat within our area and certainly across the country. And also we've got some elements here of slightly more regenerative arable with wildflower strips. So again, we're kind of broadening the opportunity to learn from those different techniques. And part of the program was there, as I said, to appoint a farming officer who would be engaging with well, visitors, but also primarily local farmers. Right, another one right on the edge of our estate. This is on the River Pang, just south of Pangbourne. More copse. This is a wildlife trust site. This is primarily coppice, so they're really looking at dormice and sort of all the butterflies and things that go with coppice. But the volunteers weren't able to coppice because there's so much ash dieback in the area. So what we funded there, the work on the ash, so either cutting it down completely if it's too dangerous, or cutting it back to a point where it can remain standing but not a threat. And we do a process called veteranization, which is where we actually chainsaw into the trunks and things to increase the sort of range of habitats, like for mosses, lichens, and also for bats and birds to benefit from that. So these are kind of like standing habitats in their own right. But that primarily allows the volunteers to come in and do all this coppice work. Tidcombe Farm is the one in Wiltshire I mentioned earlier. This is just only about 5 miles away from Hungerford, just on the edge of the upper part of the downs there. And this is the farmer there really is a real wildlife enthusiast. He's done all sorts of things previously. So we're taking the fields here and we are paying for them to be managed in a way that benefits a greater range of chalk grassland flowers and also provides habitats for rare insects such as the Duke of Burgundy butterfly. So we're doing, they're particularly fussy butterflies, it seems. Yeah. Extraordinary sort of need interaction between cowslips and scrub and sunny spots and damp, all sorts of things. Anyway, so that's the primary focus of this particular area, but obviously it benefits other wildlife as well. So that's it. That's the 7 sites. So I didn't offer anyone a chance to ask any questions, but I'm very happy to take any questions if people have them.
Well, I'll kick off, Tony, with a question, which is I'm very, very conscious of what you said about having 2 years to do things. So presumably you have to choose things which make an impact straight away, really, in some senses. So I can sort of understand that with the rewiggling of the river, for example. You sort of do that and you've achieved something that isn't just going to sort of be reversed. But some of the other things, such as the Tidcombe Farm one, presumably the farmer's going to be needing to source some other income. Is that through stewardship and so on, or is it?
Well, yes, thank you. I mean, there is. I didn't speak about that, but clearly, almost all of them, I think, have other streams of income. there's all sorts of funds out there, as I'm finding out, being part of this new world, as it were, of landscape and nature recovery. So yes, quite a few of them rely on SFI, those sorts of things. There's access funds. There's also thing called FIPL funding, which is farming in protected landscapes. So they're doing some really interesting stuff, supporting farmers around particular initiatives. I mean, I'll say a little bit about that because there's a really interesting one there. There's a project around deer control. Now, as you're probably aware, deer can be, certainly particularly as a real problem in terms of trees, being able to really thrive. So in a way, they are a pest, but there's very little. It seems there's little incentive to really get them under control because the shooters, need to be paid, and there's actually very little income coming from a deer that's been shot. So this project is actually paying the, I'm calling them shooters, but huntsmen or whatever it is, the stalkers, to shoot, and then they're going to actually they're linking up to a new abattoir near Newbury, which will handle with all of the processing, because obviously just killing them, you want to use them for the meat, which is very high quality stuff. And then they're going to use the meat in ready meals for food banks and places like that, people who struggle with food poverty. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes, because culturally there might be, a bit of a pushback on the thought of eating venison. But yeah, it's been trialed elsewhere, I think in Sussex, and I think that's gone reasonably well. But here it's, I think, a bigger scale stuff. But it seems it's a really good circular, way of actually addressing what's a problem. So yeah, the answer is there's lots of funding streams that will enable them to help maintain some of these habitats. But they are legally obliged to look after for the next 10 years.
Okay. Bill, I think you were next. Bill?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was just finding my on switch. Only that's amazing. I think there's a huge number of questions, but how did the partnership decide on where to go?
Okay.
And was there a guide from the funders as to what was actually required? Did you have to pitch for it to a certain scope of works, or were you given a free hand to say that these are the things we'd like to do, and this is the benefits that will come from them?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wasn't involved right at the start, so I came in really when the thing had just kicked off. But as far as I understand from obviously speaking with the people who set it up, so the idea was the program is about species survival. So they were really trying to target habitats within the specific areas that were needed boosting, particularly for certain species that are under threat. So I think the habitats that were identified, this is through things like the local nature recovery strategy. I mean, we have the North West, it's a weird arrangement. North Wessex Downs is a vast area. We deal with 7 local authorities. Can you imagine that?
No.
No. Unfortunately, most of them are relatively passive, but they all have to be consulted. So they've all got their own nature recovery strategies and all sorts of things. So it comes from that. So from the sort of work we do as a national landscape, we identify habitats that are either seriously under threat or need to be prioritized. So of those, chalk grassland, chalk streams, ancient woodland, and heathland were the ones, the priorities. So that's where I think we went out to that. Some of the partners we've worked with previously, you may know of ARC, who Action for the River Kennet. who do fabulous work. I've been doing that for quite a few years now, and now extending it into the River Pang as well, and all round. So we have partners like that already from previous work we've done, programs of work we've done. Others came forward when we put the word out. So yeah, it was really, we were prioritizing key habitats that were under threat or we short of, because the overarching aim of this particular project is to contribute to the 30 by 30, you know, the 30% of habitat restoration, wildlife restoration by 2030.
No.
So this has been very much a big focus of this is the quantity, you know, how much habitat have we restored or created? And then hopefully the species thing will follow from that. But when the bid was put in, then it was assessed by the Heritage Fund, and they had their criterion, and they pretty much accepted most of it, actually, I think. But they tweaked a few things that they prioritized themselves. So that's how it came about.
Okay. And they're sort of disparate sites. They're sort of dotted rather than joined. Is that because those are particularly degraded areas?
No, that's just in a way what came forward. I mean, there are moves. We're very, very conscious about trying to join up. You know, as the wildlife, I can't remember his name now, the report that came out a few years ago, but it was talking about in terms of wildlife habitat, bigger, better, more joined up.
Yeah.
So there are other initiatives around linking that into other things. So although this looks like bits in isolation, it's not really, because there's all sorts of things going on around.
Yeah. Is there somebody overseeing that, all of that there, you know, not just yours, but others that are then linking in? Is that the local authority doing that? Or?
Well, it's sort of, and this is where it's challenging. It's a bit like what's happened with the water, you know, with water and rivers, is there's so many different organizations involved with different aspects of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not a national park, so we don't actually have really any powers.
Yeah.
We are really there to promote the protection of the national landscape. That's our primary aim. But all we can do is assess what might need to be done, and then try and encourage others to do that.
Yeah. What? And the 9 partners, they were just, are they all farmers, or are they all landowners, or is it?
So Tidcombe was a farmer, and he was part of Southern Streams, which is a farm cluster. We've done work with them in the past previously, which is why he came on board. Benham Estate were new. They are part of Richard Sutton Estate, which is vast international organization, hotels, things across the world. But they own this big estate, and they own quite a chunk of they own pretty much all the floodplain land around there down to Newbury. So they're huge. And they are, but I mean, I could say that, you know, despite what they might appear like, they're actually really, really enthusiastic about what we've been doing. They're their first time they got involved with this stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really keen. Bucklebury Common are new. That's a private estate, perhaps one of the oldest estates in the single longest running family estate in the country, one of them. And I think the current owner is felt that something needed to be done, because, you know, it was previous incumbents had not done anything, had neglected the place. So it was great that he really wanted to do something. Obviously, he's getting funding to do that, but Bucklebury Common is very, because it's common land, it's footpaths all over the place, and it's public. You can access any area. So it actually is a hugely important amenity for Thatcham and Newbury and the areas there, and is actually under threat because of encroaching development. and they're linking up with the River Pang, so they own quite a bit more land, but they're linking up with other estates. Moorcops is owned by the Wildlife Trust. That's the Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trust. Sulham Estate is another private estate, and Earth Trust is a charity.
Yeah.
So we're finding I think it's fair to say with this particular program, we're not focused. The idea is we want habitat restoration wherever that is. So it's we're supporting whoever it is has the habitat we want to support.
Yeah.
And they are contributing match funding in certain ways. Obviously not 50-50, but they are one of the requirements is they match fund for about 10%.
I think this plays into sort of quite an interesting debate going on, which is that I've heard going on about the ELMS payments, as to whether it should be focused on small farmers and so on, or whether you should actually focus it on big landowners who've got the sort of heft to do big things, which landowners don't have.
It's an interesting, it is indeed an interesting argument. I mean, I think, the bigger estates, they just have the infrastructure and the facilities and the management structure, because, this is not, the sort of scale of things that Bucklebury Common are doing is really complex, so that they have to manage all sorts of things. They're doing talks. They have to actually manage the fact that it is open access, and they do get people coming along in quad bikes and driving all over and all that sort of stuff. So, a lot of small farmers just wouldn't have the resource, the time to be able to do this. And also the scale of it, I have to say, if own a lot of land, you can do a lot more than you could if you'd only a small amount. And the administrative input can often be, not dissimilar. So it does, working with estates, I think does get some benefits. And I think some of them are very, whatever your view on land ownership, I think some of them are really trying to do the right thing. And if it's been in the family a long time, they don't want to be the ones to let the dynasty down, as it were.
Kate, you've had your hand up for a long time. Kate?
Yep, coming up. Just getting myself sorted. Thanks. That's fantastic, Tony. I have to say, I just want to thank you for putting me right about the Bucklebury Common. I drive across it often to go and see friends who are up in Beanham. And it's shocking when you see it. You think, what the hell is going on? And certainly they're a great family of dog walkers, and they were saying, isn't it appalling kind of thing. So I can actually go back to them now and explain what it is that you're trying to do there. It's an interesting thing, isn't it, about how do you communicate to members of the public about what is going on? Particularly, I think dog walkers are an interesting group because everybody stops to talk to the dog. And I just wonder whether we ought to be more proactive about putting up, sort of laminated notices or sort of, audible postings saying, this is what's going on here and why. So we learned our lesson in Pewsey when we did the marsh down in Jones's Mill, where we had to bring in mechanical diggers because the Galloways just couldn't cope with keeping the marsh clear of the bigger saplings. And everybody was up in arms. What else do you think you're doing? It's absolute land terrorism. This is absolutely appalling and all the rest of it. And it did. It looked awful. And then very interestingly, we've had an amazing flowering of orchids since. And people have just marched across the orchids to get a photograph of a particular orchid. Have to sort of laugh if it wasn't so sad. So at least I'll be able to go back to my friends and say, this is what's going on Bucklebury Common. So thank you very much.
Well, just to sort of speak to that as well, thanks for that comment. I think early on they might have, because they've done other work as well, which is equally devastating. And in the wet weather last winter, it really did look like the Somme. And having big machines around, I think people were sort of thinking, "Oh Christ, what are they doing? They're going to be building houses. They're going to do this." It's just, so you're absolutely right. Comms is essential really early on. And I think probably in retrospect, they could have helped themselves a bit more with that. But having said that, they have done lots and lots of talks, lots of engagement, explaining now what is going on there. But I think it points to a few things. One is, unfortunately, the rather simplistic understanding that perhaps we are given as the public around nature and about trees. You know, a tree is good, you know, but actually, no, it's not. A tree in the wrong place is not going to survive. So right tree, right place. And you know, in these circumstances, a lot of these birch trees, they're all exactly the same age. They're all really spindly. They're never going to thrive. They weren't supporting a good range of wildlife, and so actually, you know, they were weeds really, in a way, in the true sense. So. But people were dismayed, you know, you're taking trees down. We're trying to plant these somewhere else. Yeah, well, that's not why we're here doing this particular thing, but the benefits in other ways will be greater. Thing about dog walkers, there is actually, we're going to be putting a whole load of paths, have been put in there. Because one of the problems they've got on the heathland, particularly, is if people let their dog walk around, you've got nesting birds. Actually, I do recommend probably the next 2 or 3 weeks, go up at dusk, and there's loads of nightjars up on the common there. I mean, it's a really special place, and I think they've got a few Dartford warblers and woodlarks and things like that. So, but you know, people taking their dogs. You know, letting their dogs go free is actually a real wildlife killer.
Yeah, we've got that
and
problem.
not just disturbance, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is a nightmare.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, it was just thank you. I mean, you know, these are absolute wildlife lovers, you know, and they were just taken aback. I was taken aback when I saw all the brush being piled up against the trunks of the oaks, and I thought, well, that's not going to do them any good. But you know, the good news, it's all actually being taken away.
They will be, yeah. They'll be taken away this autumn when we're past the nesting season.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it'll all be, Give it 2 years time, and you'll think, well,
just before everyone else sleeps in, one thing on that: is the carbon sequestration in those areas better now than it would be if the trees were there?
That's a good point. I can't answer that really. I have asked the question because in my own mind, and also 1 or 2 other people have said, well, what's going on there? I think difficult to say, but I think in certain circumstances, actually, the carbon sequestration is quite good in comparison, because it's particularly in the wood pasture, because it's because the you know, the plants and things are actually absorbing a lot quicker. But I couldn't answer for sure. But again, that wasn't the focus of it. But it would be
no. But I just think it would be a positive selling point if that's what it is, you know.
Yeah.
Shirley, yes. Would you like to?
Thank you. From a point of great ignorance, I just wondered, given the expertise that your whole enterprise has got, is there any finding so far that what had gone before and what you're trying to restore is not going to be feasible because of climate change? Or is it that the predictions were already taking account of the changes since that original landscape existed?
Again, it's not an overt part of the program, and I think that's a failing, and that's something I would certainly feedback. They're looking at the original documents and application. There was a sort of feeling that certainly with the heathland stuff, because there is heathland down at Greenham Common stuff, but that's outside of our area, that it could be seen as stepping stones for any species that had to migrate north with climate change. But really, it was almost, it's almost incidental, I think, to the thing. I don't think there's any evidence of real forward thinking around that. as to what, how that will play out and how fast it's going to happen. But I think the idea of what seems to be coming forward is more enabling species to be able to migrate more. This is through this joining up strategy.
Thank you.
Yes, just commenting on that. I don't know if anybody else has picked up on the report concerning the survival of young trees that came out a few days ago. That was I just picked up a reference to it. Julian and I were in correspondence about it. Evidence that trees are, well, understandably in this weather, were doing really badly, and the health of young trees is a real issue for tree planting schemes. Not least because of the deer and the issue there. Gordon has put a couple of messages on the chat here.
Okay.
So he
Shall
says,
I'll stop sharing.
Oh, righto. Gordon, I'll just read out what you've put on the chat. Has the Benham Estate stream been videoed so it can go on YouTube? And is there some sort of long-term plan? And is the NFU involved? Well, Gordon's questions.
Okay. Well, the first one I can certainly say Benham Estate, yes. We've been very lucky. ARC, one of the project manager for ARC, Rupert Kelton, he's a bit of a drone master. So he's done quite a few shots of the whole work at Benham by drone, and he's actually just put together a story map for that, which explains a little bit of the history of the site and the principles around the river restoration work, and also what they're looking to try and do in the future. So that's really good, and there's some drone shots in there, so you can get a real feel for what's been done going on.
I think it'd be a good idea to do videos on all of them, if I might say, and put them a link on the website here so people can look at them, because I think one of them has already been involved on the BBC. I think Countryfile showed one where they were doing work on one of the chalk streams and they rerouted it. So I think there's maybe that's linked to it. And the other thing is, like Bill was asking, a long-term plan. And is the NFU involved?
They're not.
Hey?
They're not.
No?
No.
Well, because of the common, are they going to do regenerative farming on that? I.e., like you said, with the animals, because they've done this in certain places where there's been common land and they've put animals in, which seems to help to regenerate the land a bit better. Yeah.
Well, the Bucklebury Common has never been arable or agricultural. It's always been heathland. So the cattle there really to kind of manage it. Well, the cattle were there originally historically because of the commoners. The commoners had right to graze their animals. So no, the answer is that the cattle that are going to be there now are there to really manage and keep the heathland in good condition, the pasture in good condition. They're there effectively as for food production. And it's only 10 of them anyway at the moment. So, well, they'll be coming in probably late August. NFU haven't been involved. I think it does point to something that we need in the North Wessex Downs. We have a real issue in the sense that we have very little. Most of our land is agricultural, arable, or pasture, and that means farming land. And so one of the challenges we have in trying to provide 30% of our land nature friendly is to engage with farmers to be able to somehow introduce more elements of habitat restoration or creation. Now, I mentioned about farm clusters, and they're essentially they focus, it depends, they're all different. So some of them focus on particular things like bringing back farmland birds, and others might be sort of about insects. So it's really up to them in a way what they do, and they are a way in the future trying to perhaps encourage them to be a bit more ambitious around what they do in terms of habitat restoration.
Yeah, I seen the government were trying to push them in it, because they're trying to push that they set aside footpaths at the side of their fields, and Bug Life has been trying to get on with them as well, because it's the insects pathways for them to go from one place to another.
Yeah.
So we need to do that as well. And I notice, well, I don't know if you're involved with Bug Life as well, but like I like taking pictures of bugs.
Good.
The last couple of years, we're sort of 85–90% down on bugs.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the EU now and our government are looking to give more permission to use neonicotinoids, which will kill off the bees. So I would say to everybody involved, I hope everybody with the wildlife to please write to your MP, because most people don't even get involved with their MP.
Yeah.
You know, and talk to them and say, this is what's going on. We want to save our wildlife in all different types. Anyway,
absolutely. Yeah.
I get quite upset about all these different things as a smallholder.
Yeah.
And we try to look after our little bit here, but it's as we've tried already, I believe, with our council is climate change, environment change, and now we got this land consultation, which seems to be going nowhere at the moment, because the different parts of Defra and the other groups, i.e. more like the Angela Rayner and the Water Board people, all want to do different things, and they don't want to talk to each other. I think this government's got to take them by the throat and screw them, quite honestly, you know, because we need a government that has vision, and that's for the people of all of this country. It's not just for one group. Thanks anyway. You know,
No,
I'll
absolutely
get going on that.
Right, God, you've had your usual forthright stuff.
Well, just to say, I mean, I went to Groundswell about 2 weeks ago. Do you know Groundswell?
I've heard of it. Yeah, our MP Ros Savage was there.
Yes, good. Well, I noticed that, yeah, because I'm just outside of her area, but I know she's doing great work around this. I would certainly recommend anyone going to it. It is incredible. It's vast and overwhelming almost, but they have 2 days of all sorts of stuff around regenerative agriculture. It's really, if you want to be inspired and actually see what's going on and realize the depth of understanding and thinking that's going on around this, go there, because I think it fills you with hope. We don't often to get here what's the good stuff that's going on around. It doesn't come to our attention. The media doesn't seem to be interested in good stories. So if you want a bit of a perk up that, or look at Groundswell, they've got a YouTube channel and various things, and it's really full of amazing stuff.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the linkage up between different groups. There's so many different groups around. There needs to be an overall plan, and there doesn't seem to be one. And that's got to come from the government.
Yeah. I think, well, I don't know, it's difficult at the moment because they seem to be in transition, but I think there seem to be, I'm hearing rumors that they're beginning to pull stuff together a bit. I mean, certainly there's a lot of lobbying from us. We are part of there's national landscapes all over the country, in all sorts of places. And their recent conference there was very, very loud and clear about needing that government support. And in fact, the minister was there, And though while I've said ministerial words, she did seem to be supportive in certainly in spirit.
But Gordon, I do think you raise a very important point, which is at all phases, you know, we get turns in the political climate, and I think it's really important for everybody to make it clear that what's been quite a beneficial, positive period, you know, the people all involved in that and the farmers who more than anybody understand what's going on. And I noticed, Adrian, your comment about just getting the wildflowers to germinate. Farmers and landowners understand better than anybody about climate change because they have to deal with it every single day. So, and it's very important if the political climate is on a turn that everybody makes it clear that they haven't gone away and changed their minds and got interested in something else.
Yeah, I'm just pushing my MP at the moment to do things on flooding and getting ditches cleaned out, because farmers and landowners are supposed to look after their ditches and they're not. And it's a big problem with flooding. So
well, it's all interlinked in a way, and I think this is what I'm well, it is challenging sometimes when you get such isolated bits of work, you know, but then it's so complex sometimes, these systems. I think, you know, there are so many authorities and so many bodies involved with different aspects of this. It's really hard to pull everyone together, and you can end up all forever in sort of meeting rooms trying to thrash out a solution.
Do the wigglings that you've done make for the floodplains, Tony?
Yes. Well, what was happening there is that it's designed because in the past, when they dredge out the rivers, they usually put all the dredged material on the side, which builds the banks up, which prevents it from flooding. So what we've done, we got rid of all of that. So they will the river will flood into the surrounding meadows and woodland, and that is part of the deliberate scheme there, because that creates a much more diverse habitat through that seasonal re-wetting, as it were.
Yeah. And beavers?
Well, we haven't got any beavers in this scheme, but talking to people like Wildlife Trust, Wiltshire Wildlife Trust and things, there are beavers in Wiltshire.
They'll find their way.
Particularly on the Avon, and I don't think it'll be long before we'll see some of these, you know, on land, piece of land where people are willing to host them.
Yeah, they're round Swindon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
well, it's 8 o'clock now. So, Tony, thank you so much. It's such an interesting project and gives you an insight into not only the yes, indeed, the habitat and so on, but this issue of all the funding streams and the working together and the dealing with all that is a monumental issue, isn't it? It's just the way things work nowadays in terms of trying to get everything done. So well done for what's been achieved and is going to be achieved in such a tight timescale, isn't it, to get this done and to make a difference.
Well, we're hopeful that if, you know, doing a good job will show that, you know, we'll get funding in future, because my job ends in May, so I have no idea what's happening afterwards. So
good luck with that. So I think we'll round up on that unless anybody else is. I think we've exhausted that for the moment. On our agenda, we had the good food cycle issue, which people a sort of vote as to whether that's something we'd like to talk about at a forthcoming meeting. I think is what we were going to discuss. I don't suppose anybody's looked at the
the lady in charge of it, their chief executive, has already told my MP that's where I got the information on the land project.
Right.
They're all in confusion. They're not talking to each other. So
Right.
that's what's happening there.
Okay. There's a link on the invitation, which I thought the food strategy for England has been published by the government. And I think Julian is keen that we look at that if we can make a commitment to spend some time doing that. So maybe that's something we can schedule for a future meeting. But I think we need to have a look at what's being said in some detail first. You're up for that, Margaret?
Well, the land consultation did not mention food security, and the things that's been coming out recently is not good news for us.
I can't remember where we are with the land use framework consultation.
Well, it's supposed to be out in autumn. The consultation is obviously finished, but they're supposed to be publishing it in the autumn.
Yeah.
And as I say, from what I've heard, where it's in disagreement. You know, all these different groups within Parliament, they don't like talking to each other. As more like Tony's found out.
Yeah. So maybe we'll flag that up as the next thing we want to focus on, and have a look at that for a future meeting.
Yeah.
How do people feel about meetings? Because obviously August, September. Is it first of all, is 7 o'clock better than 6 o'clock? I think 7 o'clock is better than 6 o'clock generally.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree? Yeah. So whatever we schedule, we'll do it for 7 o'clock in future, because 6 o'clock was a bit of an early thing for everybody. And we'll have a look about when we can next usefully have the next meeting, given whatever else is going on. So I don't know if you want to just give us a quick whiz bill about you will know everything that's going on. Sorry,
I think after the massive effort that the people have put in to put out the summit, I think they're sitting back and saying, what do we do next? We got a meeting on the 24th as a steering group to work out what our targets are. And there's lots of them now. We've got a real open door with the council, which is very helpful to talk to them about all sorts of stuff. So we've got a meeting with them on the 29th to talk through what we might be able to help each other with. And this could be one of them, with the food issue. I don't know how they're dealing with it as a council, but it's that sort of how do we help each other to help climate and whatever is what the question is for us. And we've got everything from solar panels, community energy, through to retrofit and land use even. So it's all those. There's a very big woodland plan coming out fairly shortly for the council. The Lib Dems in their manifesto committed to, I think, I don't want to exaggerate this, but I think it was 20% woodland in Wiltshire by 2030. Now, as we know, it's only 9% at the moment. So they've got a big job to do.
I don't think it was 20%, but it was a very big, wasn't it? I noticed that.
Yeah,
it was, but it
yeah.
was really, really huge given the nature of our landscape.
But they've also got a big grant, there is a big grant available to deal with it as well. So if people are interested in engaging with that, then we will be pushing forward to say, how can we help actually spread the word and get the money shared amongst the local groups to get trees planted in whatever way. And they were saying it isn't just about planting new woodland, it's about planting trees. So where trees have fallen down, put new ones in, roadside trees, all that sort of stuff. So, or even creating new green corridors with trees, etc. Or with the agroforestry type thing, do we call that's trees? So they're looking wherever trees could be planted in a variety of ways. And it would be very helpful if a couple of people would just step up and say, yeah, we'd like to work with them on that. Because we do need that engagement. And I think it'd be really, really good to get us up front and working with them. And they've got 2 tree officers at the moment, I think. They had 3, but they've only got 2 now. And they will be working full time on it as well. And I think the grant money they're getting helps to extend their tenure in the council, because their first one was only on one set of grant money for 3 years or something. So interesting. If anybody's interested, let me know, and I'll put it down on the list of things people can get engaged with. We will put out a note anyway once we've had our meeting with the council. Okay. But I thought that was a really, really interesting one. That they had. They said it to us. We didn't ask. They said we have a commitment in our manifesto to do this, and we are going to do it. I thought, right, okay. That's a fairly big commitment, and good. I'm very pleased to hear it. Okay, so answering your question about September, I think you'll probably be okay, because by that time we'll have ourselves organising into what we're doing next on the various fronts.
Okay, we'll sort of keep September as a possibility when we to do something constructive that would help with all that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think we've wound to an end, everybody. Thanks for attending, everybody.
Thanks
and
very
bon
much.
voyage to Adrian. He's off on his.
Well, thank you. It was very interesting.
And thank you very, very much, Tony.
Yeah.
For a really interesting talk.
You're welcome. Well, I mean, when perhaps the program comes to an end, I'd be happy to perhaps, talk further about things that have come up or whatever.
How about a site visit? Next year.
Yeah.
To see some of the good things that have happened.
Yeah.
That would be a really good thing to offer.
Yeah. I know.
Get a tour bus.
Yes. Get a charabanc going. Yeah, no, I'm so a couple of them will be. We've hosted groups in the past at Bucklebury. He's always very happy to talk, to host people, and I think at Benham as well they would be. Benham there's no public access to there because there's no footpaths and things. But I'm pretty sure they would be open to some sort of visit as well.
Yeah. Okay. It would be good to offer next spring or something a trip out for members, and yes, it would be a tour bus, but that's fine. It just depends how many people want to do it.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. And just sort of one other question, Tony, while we're on, I'm getting back to my woodland thing. Are the people that you are communicating with, the landowners you're communicating with, got anywhere they would want to plant a number of trees which would add to the count in Wiltshire? It'd have to be.
Well, there's only the one site.
Yeah.
And it's chalk grassland. I mean, I think it does raise a couple of issues. Well, first of all, I know planting a tree and probably maintaining it is not a problem. The land is the issue.
Yeah.
The second thing is then, as I said before, right tree, right place. And I think this is where the local nature recovery strategy could be really helpful and should be consulted, because that will indicate where trees perhaps would best be planted in terms of complementing and enriching the specific sort of landscape type. I know that there would be a lot of opposition to planting lots of trees on the downs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's by its very nature is open, it's grassland type thing. So I think we'd have to look carefully at what sort of landscapes would accommodate those best, rather than just saying let's put them everywhere.
Yeah, and they've now got the tools to actually look at it as it is, haven't they? So we can perhaps see where the gaps are, create corridors or whatever. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I just will flag up one further thing I've just thought of, which I think we need to keep a close eye on, which is the move which is going to take place. This is a long-term thing, of the Health Security Agency from Porton to Essex. I don't know if this is on anyone's radar.
No.
Health Security Agency at Porton is moving, much to the opposition of our local MP, John Glenn. It is going to move to Essex, which has been a long-term plan. It's a bit like a kind of Stonehenge thing, and millions and millions have been spent already. Nothing has happened, but it's going to merge two sites, and it's all going to go to Harlow near Essex. Now, I'm not sure what implications that has for the Porton Down range, but that is one of the most special places in our county. So I just think we need to keep an eye on whether
next 2 years, isn't it?
No, it's a much longer thing. I think it's, yeah, I mean, it would start, the move would start, but it's going to be a purpose-built facility. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's that quick, but the implications for the land, which has really such a special place by virtue of not being encroached on, are quite worrying to me personally. And it may be that it's still going to be needed for other things, but given the eye of the Treasury to flog off as much MOD stuff as possible to fill the gaps in their funding, I think that's something we need to find out what the plan is. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a big development if they put something up on that. An awful. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Bill, for the tech.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Okay. Good night,
Cheers.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.